Hi. This is probably about the weirdest thing I've ever done.
I think that you already know what this is. It's a Swimmable Mermaid tail from FinFun that my mom bought me for Christmas because I am a child. And that iridescent fabric there is going to be some pretty fish fins. This tail in and of itself basically looks like my Mersona from early high school. I actually attempted to sew a Swimmable Mermaid tail, but I aimed way too high and I tried to make it from reclaimed plastic film, which was really cool but super time consuming and it didn't wind up happening. But my mom bought me this and I added some fins, which was super easy and barely an inconvenience. First, I eyeballed out the size and shape that I wanted for my fin. One thing that I would be remiss not to mention is that I made my fins way too long, and because they were cut somewhat on the bias, they stretched out even longer. I should have made them stouter, shorter, and maybe used some plastic fishing line to force them to hold their shape better while they were in the water, but oh well, live and learn. I plan on making another go of this project down the line, so that'll be really fun to do. Then I cut a second fin in the same shape and size by laying my first fin on top of it and using that as a guide. Next, I measured from my waist to my mid-thigh, and I used that measurement to make some marks on my little seam here, measuring from the very top of the waistband and down about 16 inches, I believe. This would keep it consistent so that my fins would be nice and even, and I marked all of my points with a water-dissolvable marker. And I was sure to leave like a little 4-inch gap in between my marks, and I was going to unpick the stitches in those two spots. This way I'll have a little hole to insert my fins in. One thing to keep in mind while you're unpicking is not to tug at the fabric at all. This will cause it to curl and be a little bit harder to work with. On my machine, I used a satin stitch, which is basically a zigzag stitch with a really short stitch length and a, decently wide width. This will finish off the raw edge of my fabric, and see the very raw edge there, got a little bit on the end, that's going to be cut off in just a moment. So there's about 1/4 of an inch of waste. I did go back through and make 2 little loops in my design. This was to add visual interest and to make my fins look, more fish-like. These whimsical swooping shapes were definitely very Barbie influenced, but Barbie influences about everything that I do. This was a nice sort of zone out sort of project. I know a lot of people really like doing free motion quilting because you just kind of chill out and make the shapes and don't really worry about it too much, which is really nice. And look how nice these turned out. Ugh, I love them. Now it's time to stuff my fins inside my little holes. I wanted the longest end to be facing my seam, so I made sure to keep that facing my seam, and this was the easiest way to think about it because I'm going to be turning it inside out, and that does kind of have a mirror effect. So as long as my long edge is facing my seam when it's inside of my little tail sack, once everything is turned right side out, the long edge will still be facing my seam. It's not super mind-bending. Then I stitched my holes closed using a stretch stitch. I did a zigzag stitch so that everything would be held onto very nice and tight, and it worked out really well for me. Next, all that you have to do is find a nice body of water to get yourself into. We drove to Florida and borrowed my aunt's pool, and that worked out really nice for us. I would recommend finding a body of water that is not wild, so that you don't have to contend with currents or sea creatures your first time. As you can see here, the order of operations for getting your tail on is to start with the tail sleeve, then put the monofin on, and then grip the little tail clippy edges and get those on over your fin.
We did it!
Nice.
Okay.
As far as swimming in the tail goes, as long as you know how to do a butterfly stroke, it's actually pretty easy. But I am coming into this experience with quite a bit of swim practice under my belt. It was really hard to get a good shot of myself swimming in it though, because I would literally push myself right out of shot because the monofin gave all of my kicks so much power. Also, I'm just gonna nitpick myself here. I think that I bent my knees way too much. It kind of ruins the immersion. This is far from the last Mer project that you're gonna see from me. I plan on revisiting this concept same time next year, so do be sure to subscribe if that's something that you want to see. Odds are, if you liked this video, you'll like the rest of my sewing shenanigans. If you did like the video, don't forget to like it so that someone else like you can see it. And thank you so much for coming along on this journey with me. I'll see you next time, friends. Bye!